economic experience. More by the rate pattern.
Right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to this press conference. I'll start with the Zimbabwe's president, Comrade Madida. He'll give us his press statement.
Good afternoon to you, members of the press. My name is Comrade Madida, and I'm the Zimbabwe's national president. And we have seen it fit to join colleagues from Tajamuka and organizing for Zimbabwe. Given the current state of affairs in our country, in our city, over the removal of vendors from the streets, and as NASU, our statement is very clear that this government should stop what it's doing forthwith. They should not evict, and they should stop evicting vendors from the streets. They should stop abusing people's rights in the streets by indiscriminately bombing, tear gassing people and beating people. This government should make sure that if they want to remove vendors from the streets, they should make sure that they provide employment, they provide the necessary empowerment for our citizens, those who are unemployed, those who are trying to make an honest living, instead of harassing people in the streets. Because what we are saying is very clear: removing vendors from the streets without a sustainable alternative is synonymous to a doctor applying painkillers to a bone fracture. It will not change anything. Our advice to them is very clear: they should fight cholera, not the vendors. And most importantly, this government should be able to address the day-to-day issues that are affecting vendors, that are affecting the generality of our people. And we urge all the vendors to peacefully resist the attempts by the government to remove them from the streets. And your statement is very clear: if the government continues to do what it's doing, if the police, if the riot police, or even if the military continues to do what it is doing, the response of the citizen is going to maintain their position in the streets, and they are not going anywhere, because it is a moral obligation for this government to provide employment for its citizens, to provide the necessary environment which allows for citizens to live in a state where the government respects the will of the people. I'll leave you to Tajamuka Secretary.
Afternoon. I'm Munjozi Mutandere with Organizing for Zimbabwe. And I'll read the statement from Organizing for Zimbabwe. Basically, following what happened in Harare yesterday, the Organizing for Zimbabwe Trust has noted with grave concern two things: the directive itself and the manner in which the directive to remove vendors from the Harare CBD has been carried out. In this manner, the Organizing for Zimbabwe believes that the new dispensation or the current government is behaving exactly like the old government of Robert Mugabe. The government in this unfolding crisis has shown that it has no intention whatsoever of engaging its citizens on points of disagreement. And we think that this is unfortunate. The resorting to the failed strategies of using brute force against innocent people is something that we are sad about. The prevailing economic conditions in the country at the moment and the uncertainty around the economic trajectory 2 months after an election points to a dire need for this government to engage its citizens now than ever before. So we think that the failure to recognize that this is a time to engage citizens rather than forcing citizens to just swallow the decisions of the government is unfortunate. We have noted that this term alone, many kids have not gone to school because parents are unable to pay fees. We are approaching month end. The informal sector itself in this country has become the mainstay of many families. And the disruption of that informal sector is an unfortunate development in the absence of a clear way forward of what to do to be able to give those people a livelihood. So we think that the government of Zimbabwe should take responsibility and address the fundamental challenges that this country faces. Addressing the symptoms is not going to take us forward as a country. Having a clean city and hungry citizens, I think it's something that a serious government should have a look at and say, is this the kind of a government that we want to build? So we think that the government must take responsibility, put in place a clear plan of what they are going to do to address the real problems that are facing people in the city of Harare, to be vendors and to sell everything they can to make a living. And in the absence of that plan, the government must behave and allow citizens to do what they think is right to make a living, because the government would have failed to provide that kind of a living. So we in that regard, we also urge President Mnangagwa and his government to ensure that we are where we are as a country because of what they have done in the past 38 years. And to think that you can then continue to use force and get away with it, I think is unfortunate on his part. This is a time to talk, a time to engage the vendors, a time to proffer way forward that are clear and straightforward. Lastly, we think that the people of Zimbabwe have traveled a very long road, and we urge them to keep mobilizing, to keep organizing at community levels and address the challenges that confront them on a daily basis. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mjonzi. I will read a statement on behalf of Tajamuka. We make this statement following a vicious crackdown on the vendors by the illegitimate government of Zimbabwe. This comes on the back of fatal shooting of innocent civilians a few weeks ago, and it is happening in the full glare of the so-called Commission of Inquiry led by the former President of South Africa, President Mnangagwa. Obviously, these maneuvers are informed by the insecurities and the paranoia of those who know that the people are not on their side and who are responsible for the obtaining economic situation in the country. It is clear that the government of Emmerson Mnangagwa is to blame for all this. We call on this government to immediately cease the use of force against civilians and enter into negotiations with the vendors and allow all the other stakeholders to find an amicable and lasting solution to the vending crisis in Zimbabwe. We insist that the government cannot remove vendors from the streets without providing alternative vending facilities or even employment. We make this statement fully cognizant of the inconveniences vendors may have on other members of the public who may want to enjoy a clean city and free movement within the city. We are also aware of the conflicting and competing interests of the vendors and the formal traders who pay all their overhead costs and feel shortchanged. However, at this juncture, we implore all citizens to put their differences aside and confront the real culprit of their problems, which is squarely the illegal government of Emmerson Mnangagwa that presides over our country today. We reiterate our resolution not to recognize a government that came to power by force and foul. It is our strong contention that such a government will not and should not last more than 2 years in office. We, the citizens of Zimbabwe, shall peacefully mobilize ourselves and demand a return to legality and legitimacy in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
Okay, we open the floor for questions. Yes.
Okay. My question is directed at Tajamuka.
Yes.
You say you're going to mobilize so that there is a return to legality. You also say that this government should not be in power for the next 2 years. What do you mean exactly?
Well, I think we came here some weeks ago, just after the elections, before the Constitutional Court, and stated our position clear that we would not recognize the current government of Emerson Mnangagwa for reasons that are known to everyone. That this is a government whose legitimacy is disputed. And that legitimacy is disputed because of a flawed electoral process that produced an irregular outcome. And as a citizens movement, we feel obliged to take the responsibility, to shoulder the responsibility of protecting and defending and demanding that the will of the people be respected in this country. And this is important because since 2000, we've had irregular elections, we complain for 2 weeks, it's over, it's business as usual. And these guys now think that it's normal, that's what it should be. We just steal elections, the next day when everyone is quiet, they've gone back to their normal business, and they continue like that. So we need to put a stop to that as a country. We are saying that, fine, they've put themselves there by force, and we say by force because they actually killed people to be on government. When the people try to say, no, we're not happy with the election outcome, there were shootings in the streets that we all know about. And that is what resulted in the people going quiet. But the truth of the matter is public knowledge. Everybody knows that this is a government that the people do not want, which imposed itself upon the people. And we are saying that together as citizens, we must ensure that this government should not last in power for more than 2 years, because it is a government that is based on a disputed legitimacy.
Yes.
Today is International Day of Peace.
Yes.
With what is happening around the country and Harare in particular, is there any reason that the Zimbabwean can celebrate peace in Zimbabwe?
We think that, like we have emphasized on the statement, that it is time for the government of Zimbabwe to take stock of its behavior and the way it has governed its people. And the president is in the States at a United Nations General Assembly that will discuss issues of peace. And back home, his police is brutalizing innocent citizens. There is nothing to celebrate. And we think that the sooner the government realizes that it's time to pursue a much more forward-looking way in addressing the challenges we face, the better for everyone.
And so,
yesterday we saw really violent clashes between the police and the vendors, and the vendors were actually throwing stones at the police. And you mentioned that you're going to be engaging in peaceful strategies. Please could you shed more light how you are going to do that, because already there is contention and there is violence.
First and foremost, the violence is caused by the police. Because the police have come to the streets, they have confiscated people's wares, they are beating up vendors. So it is the police that are responsible for the violence. It is the state, it is the government that is responsible for the violence in the streets. And the government should not expect to use force against people and expect nothing from the people. Do you understand what I mean? So we are really saying that it is up to the government to promote peace in this country. If the government descends on the vendors using absolute force, as we have witnessed in the last few days, the result is what we saw in the streets. And it's unfortunate because nobody is responsible for that. You cannot say that Promise Mkwanansi is responsible for the violence, or Munjozi, or my President Matita. It's a natural process. Whenever force is applied, the people will respond in the manner that we have seen. So it's up to the government to really ensure that there is peace in the country. That's why we've said in all our collective statements that the government must put down the tools of force and come to a negotiating table. I don't think that the vendors don't understand what is happening. They know that there is a problem, and they are willing to sit down and have a discussion with government, with formal business, with members of the public, and come up with a reasonable and satisfactory balance of compromise among all the stakeholders involved. What government is doing, we said it in 2014, where they did it, that it's not going to work. You cannot use force to resolve the problem in the streets, because the problem, the real problem, is an economic problem. And you can't use the guns to make that problem disappear. The government has to bite the bullet and face the problems, the real problems on the ground, resolve those problems, call everybody on board, and have those negotiations to ensure that there is some. At some point, I remember the vendors were even willing to identify places to put their wares and so on and so forth. But the government chose their own places, which was really unfortunate. So yeah, we are a peaceful movement. We are going to continue to mobilize peacefully, but resolutely. Yeah, peacefully does not mean we mean really resolute mobilization of citizens to really assert their rights and stand their ground where the government is trampling upon their rights. If the government decides to use force, the natural phenomenon is that people in the streets are going to respond equally in the same way, and that is not helpful to anybody at this point in time. I know that the police have said they want to question me and other people over the violence which happened yesterday. It's very unfortunate because we are going to arrest anybody that you want to arrest, but the problem will stay because the root cause of the problem is not being attended to.
Any other questions? Yes.
Okay, my question is to you, sir. There's a part where you mentioned you question the need for a clean city when people are hungry. And maybe my question to you is that should the city only be clean when people are on full standards?
So you see, there is an easier way of getting rid of poor people. You just kill them. So if a government decides to do that, obviously that's not acceptable. We want Harare to be clean. We will do anything in our power to organize people to do clean-up campaigns, which is actually what government should be providing leadership on. And we do clean-up campaigns, we do things that are organized. The point I was making is that there should be a balance. People are in the streets not because they want to make the city dirty. They are in the streets because they can't live, they can't survive. They need to eat, they need to pay rentals, they need to send their kids to school. And the only way they found a way to do that in the absence of a way forward from government is to get tomatoes from Bare, from farmers, and bring them into Harare and sell them. And as we strike that balance to ensure that Harare remains a seat of choice for everyone else, we should not disregard the people's rights. Just like as we pursue an economic recovery program, we cannot put aside the human rights discourse in whatever we're doing. That balance must always be there for a government to ensure that the citizens move forward and progress as a society.
I'll take 3 last questions.
Okay, there have been calls by the Minister of Local Government, the Minister of Health, to remove vendors, mainly because they say vendors have been worsening the cholera situation in Harare. What do you think vendors have, what role do you think vendors have played in the worsening of the cholera situation? Do you blame them? Do you think they have played a part or you don't?
Can I take it? How do they play a part? The vendors are not responsible for the sewer system in Harare. It's the Ministry of Local Government that is responsible for that. And the ministry, as the mother ministry, is totally responsible and accountable for that. They have not come up with the sustainable urban plan that caters for the rapid expansion of the city over the years. We still rely on the facilities that were left by the colonial government. There's never been any progress. The water chemicals and all those things, they're not there. So we cannot blame the vendors for it. They are nowhere near that.
And just to add to that, Harare was designed for about 1 million people at most, but now we are close to 4.7. We haven't expanded, as probably said correctly, the sewer system. We haven't built any new systems to cater for that rapid expansion. It's 4 times, 5 times if we want. And for anyone who has been in government for 38 years to then wake up and say that it's the vendors, I think that's madness. It shouldn't be.
Can you imagine if Mnangagwa had not chartered private luxurious planes for grace regarding? If he had not bought that new vehicle for 1 million, would he have contained cholera with the amount of money that he used to do those things? So there is a clear misprioritization of issues.
Yes.
Just yesterday, the newly appointed town clerk argues that the facilities that were established by the city fathers have got, the premises have got all the necessary facilities, toilets, running water.
The vending facilities.
The vending facilities. You have moved around, we have moved around. Do you agree to that? Because he's saying these people should move to those places because everything is in order.
It's not about that. It's not about the facilities being ordered or not being ordered. It's about a consultative and inclusive process of reaching that decision. The problem is that the government wants to treat people like their cell phones, that you can just pick this person and put him there and so on and so forth. That is not how a democratic society functions. You have to be inclusive and consultative in your processes of dealing with the city problem. I'm sure if the town clerk and others had consulted vendors organizations and the vendors themselves, we would have a different situation. Because they did not consult them at the end of the day. You had them putting market stalls in places where they can only just be white elephants, because there is nobody who is going there to buy bananas and so on and so forth. So there is really need for government to be innovative in dealing with the problem of vendors and be consultative to ensure that the places that they demarcate for those stores are strategically located in relation to the clients of the vendors. If you're going to put a vending mall like the one which is there on Qualcomm area, do you really honestly think that vendors are going to go there? So that is the problem, not the facilities that they have. And I think it should be a lesson to government to say, next, if they want to address a problem, they must work in a process that is inclusive and consultative of the stakeholders that are involved. And you'll be surprised. I know people look down upon vendors, but you'll be surprised at the ideas and the innovations that the government could actually get from the vendors and implement and come up with a working solution.
They're saying we've been consulted.
That's a lie. It's a lie. It's a government of liars, a government of murderers, lying and lying and lying, and they will not stop lying. So they've not been consulted. If they were consulted, the government would not have put the stores where they put them, because the vendors would have advised them that those are not strategic locations.
Last question. You were raising your hand. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. May God bless you.